Welcome to the Luke Macias Show. Today we are going to talk about all of the political dominoes that are falling in Texas. It's going to be a very insidery episode that's going to explain how everybody's decision to seek a different political office is now opening up a ton of other seats, the implications for that, and the forces that are spending a lot of time trying to move Texas back into the middle. Let's get to the show. Dominoes are falling. Today's episode is brought to you by Macias' Pottery. She made this, my wife made this cup. Isn't that beautiful for those of you who are watching? So she made the cup. I've got my coffee here. But we are going to talk about all the political dominoes falling. There was a lot of speculation a year ago. Hey, is this Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's last time? Is this Governor Abbott's last session? Is that why he's campaigning hard to move the Texas House to the right, because he wants to have one final session, get school choice done, and then not run for re-election? And what we largely know now is that both Lieutenant Governor Patrick and Governor Abbott are seeking re-election, which will make them both the longest standing governor and lieutenant governor in Texas history. Now, even though they decided to do that, we still have a tremendous amount of political dominoes falling. The first one that fell was with Attorney General Ken Paxton's decision to challenge U.S. Senator John Cornyn in the Republican primary. And when that happened, it opened up the Attorney General's seat, one of the most important seats in Texas. And as you can imagine, there are forces like Sands Casinos and Texans for Lawsuit Reform who would like to have a lot more influence in the Attorney General's office than they have had. And so they are trying hard to make sure that they are very close to whoever replaces him. We have seen now Aaron Wright's decision to run, State Senator Mays Middleton's decision to run for Attorney General, Congressman Chip Roy, and State Senator Joan Huffman. Now, Chip Roy and Mays Middleton's decision to run for Attorney General caused openings. Joan Huffman doesn't have to resign her seat. She just got reelected. But that causes openings, which then causes somebody like Dennis Paul, who's a sitting state representative who has the support of the entire Republican apparatus and conservatives all across the district, and Senator Mays Middleton and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and President Donald Trump, has decided to run to replace Mays Middleton in the state Senate. But when he decided to do that, it opened up his House seat. And so Scott Bowen, who serves on the State Republican Executive Committee, which is the board of the Republican Party of Texas, decided to run for the Texas House. And he is being challenged by a Sheila Jackson lead donor named Bob Mitchell, who somehow thinks he's going to be a good candidate for Republican state representative. Doesn't really make sense, but that's okay. To each his own. So Bob has decided to run. But when Scott did that, it then opened up a seat on the State Republican Executive Committee. And it actually gets very similar if you look at Chip Roy, who then decided to run for Attorney General. And when he decided to run for Attorney General, it then opened up his congressional district. And we have people like Trey Traynor, who served on the FEC, who resigned his seat on the FEC to then run for Congress. Mark Teixeira, you have Jason Cahill, Mike Wheeler. Mike Wheeler serves on the SREC, and he serves as the Kendall County GOP chair. So when Mike Wheeler decides to run for CD21, he has to resign his seat on the State Republican Executive Committee. So he's running for CD21, and now there's going to be a new SREC member in his stead. Each and every one of the dominoes that initially started falling with Ken Paxton's decision to run for U.S. Senate have opened up a lot of other races, be they in the infrastructure of the Republican Party. The SREC is the governing board of the GOP. It has a tremendous amount of influence on who gets censured, on what our priorities are, on what we're advocating for, on the positions we're taking, on the things we're pushing, and the governance of our party. What direction is the party as an institution heading? And it opened up legislative seats where Mays runs for AG and Representative Paul runs for state Senate and Scott Bowen runs for state representative. And this didn't just happen with the Attorney General race, because then Glenn Hager, the comptroller, decided to take a job as chancellor at Texas A&M, which I've talked a lot about. But when he did that, it opened up the comptroller's position, which then meant that Christy Craddock is running for comptroller. She didn't have to give up her seat on the Railroad Commission, so she's still a statewide commissioner. If she loses, she will be a railroad commissioner. Former State Senator Don Huffines is basically coalesced, I would say, most of the conservative support in this race, but he is running as well, did not currently hold something, but jumped into this race. And then State Senator Kelly Hancock was selected by Governor Abbott to replace Glenn Hager and has the support of the governor. But when he did that, it opened up his seat in Senate District 9, which then caused former Mayor John Huffman to get recruited by Sands, who have given him 96% of his money, Lee Wamsgans, who all the conservatives are supporting with President Donald Trump, and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and a Democrat. So now there's this special election happening, right? The dominoes start falling. And when you start replacing a couple of these seats at the top, everyone starts moving. Now, there are some other individual decisions that have happened that have also opened up more dominoes. A good example being State Senator Brian Birdwell decided to not run for re-election. And what was just announced this week is that he has been appointed by the Trump administration to serve in the administration. So State Representative David Cook, who was the Republican nominee for Speaker, is now running for State Senate, which then opens up his seat, which has several people running for that as well. Dominoes keep falling. Then the Texas House decided to go ahead and add 5 Republican congressional districts, the House and the Senate and the governor. Our governor really led on it, and it was ultimately pushed hard by the Trump administration. Texas is going to deliver 5 more Republican congressional seats. And when these 5 seats opened up, State Representative Briscoe Cain decided he was in a great position to run in Congressional District 9, sitting state representative. He's been there for, I think, 10 years at this point, not 12, but 10. So he decides to run for CD9. 40% of the primary vote comes from his House district. He's very well positioned in that congressional district. That opens up a House seat. Tom Butler, who was serving on the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation under Governor Abbott, decides to run with Briscoe Cain's support and Senator Mays Middleton's support and Governor Abbott's support to replace Briscoe Cain. Tom is a conservative. I've known Tom for a while. He should do well to replace Briscoe Cain. All the dominoes keep falling. These 5 open congressional seats have caused all sorts of people to jump and move and shift into those various positions. And we are seeing quite a few retirements, and there still might be a couple that have yet to be announced. I would not be surprised if next week or the week after, part of my update for y'all is Congressman so-and-so just announced he's not running for re-election, or State Representative so-and-so has just announced they're not running for re-election. There are a handful of those decisions still yet to be made. There's a handful of announcements still anticipated. These announcements are causing a significant amount of turnover. Senator Brandon Creighton just recently accepted the position as Chancellor of Texas Tech University, which is going to be a blow to the Texas Senate, but is going to be a huge win for our push to reform higher education across the state. Brett Ligon is a conservative Republican who has already announced that he is running to replace Senator Brandon Creighton, which opens up the district attorney seat, which is now an open, contentious election. State representatives are retiring. State senators are moving on. There are 5. There are going to be likely 5 new state senators next session. That's like 25% of the Republican caucus. That would be as if I told you, hey, there's going to be 22 new Republican state reps. That it's not quite that high in the state house, but it was this last session, which changed the Texas House pretty substantially. When you change 1 in 4 representatives, which is why we currently have Sands Casinos spending $2 million in an open special election Senate District 9 seat. They're doing that because there's an opportunity. If you are a more establishment moderate entity, and the current legislative body is not open to your policy, you are looking at making some aggressive plays to see if you can't get a foothold in the legislative process. Now, for conservatives right now, this election ends up being pretty darn important. In the Texas Senate, we are losing some people who normally carry a lot. They do a lot of heavy lifting, like Senator Mays Middleton or Senator Brandon Creighton. These are individuals who carry a substantial amount of conservative policy in their roles in the Texas Senate. There's two things that will change. Likely what we will see is some in the Senate carry more. Existing state senators, Angela Paxton, Phil King, Tam Parker, people who have the ability, who have enough legislative prowess and experience and conservative conviction to do a lot more heavy lifting in the Senate. But it's been spread out. And then also it is concentrated on a handful of some of these senators. And so, one, you'll see some sitting state senators. But as you can imagine, the importance of making sure that when Senator Birdwell goes to the Trump administration, that he's replaced with a consistent Republican conservative that we can count on, like David Cook, ends up being really important. The same is true for Mays Middleton. The same is true for Brandon Creighton. So as the dominoes start falling, a lot starts opening up. And when it starts all opening up, there's a lot of interest. Conservatives are focused right now on making sure that, one, we do not lose any ground. It's very important that when the dust settles, people do not look at the political battlefield and say, I think this legislative body got more moderate, moved back to the middle. It needs to be undeniable that all parties can get in the room and say, this person won. This is what happened last election cycle. There was no one advocating the position that the Texas House or the Texas Senate or Texas as a whole did not get significantly more conservative. Nobody was arguing that. At the end of this election cycle, people may. It all depends. You have, like I said, substantial forces looking at spending a lot.
America is at a crossroads. Now, more than ever, Texas must step up and lead the country. We don't have time to mess around. The only way to save America is with a strong Texas. You and I know this, but so do the enemies of life and liberty. Therefore, you and I have no choice but to stand up and fight. I'm Sarah Gonzalez, and to the enemies of liberty, I say, come and take it.
Last week, I emceed at Mike Alcott's re-election fundraiser. And guys, it was in Fort Worth. There were 530 people there. It was electric. We had a panel of conservative legislators who did a fantastic job explaining to the grassroots in the room just how much conservatives have worked together and organized to make sure we accomplished a lot more this session. And they talked about all the work still yet to do, which is why they're all going back. Shelley Luther, Mitch Little, Brent Money, David Lowe, Andy Hopper, Mike Alcott, all there on stage doing a great job. And so in the course of that conversation, one of the things that got mentioned is the fact that Sands Casinos is likely spending like $1 million to try to get rid of Mike Alcott. And this is what they're openly telling people. I tell people when we have these conversations, I don't have to give you some kind of secret. Sometimes I share things on this show that seem a little insidery. But guys, this is just openly known. They're telling anybody who will listen to them, we are going to spend $1 million against Andy Hopper. We're going to spend $1 million against David Lowe. We're going to spend $1 million. We're probably going to spend $1 million against Mike Alcott. We're going to try to take out all these people because we don't like the direction the Texas House has gone. It's much harder for us to get our policy accomplished. We actually cut a video during the fundraiser so that maybe some of those people looking at running against Mike Alcott kind of know what they're up against.
Hey, I'm cutting this video for a couple establishment rhinos in Austin who are thinking about trying to take Mike Alcott out for re-election. There are some of his own constituents that have a message for you.
There were a couple people that pointed out to me after I cut that video. They're like, I can't tell whether your message to Austin is like, we want you to try to take out Mike Alcott because everyone's cheering. I thought it was clear that we didn't want you to come try, like, bring it on. We're ready to go after you. I thought that was clear. A couple people pointed out maybe it wasn't clear. I'm sorry, Mike, if I ended up telling Austin to definitely come after you because everybody was so excited that they were coming after you. But I don't think that was the message. You can see grassroots know, the 500 people in that room that raised Mike hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're ready for the fight. They're ready for the battle. The dominoes are falling. District after district. It's not just the open seats. Morgan Luttrell's leaving. Michael McCall's leaving. Thank goodness. Michael McCall was maybe the worst congressman in our state. Dan Crenshaw has a myriad of primary challengers, of course, the most prominent one being Steve Toth. Guys, at the end of the cycle, the congressional delegation in Texas is either going to get more conservative or more moderate. The Texas Senate is going to get more conservative or more moderate. The Texas House is going to get more conservative or more moderate. And that's the question. As the dominoes have fallen this election, it's just continued to open up more and more opportunities. And yes, there are plenty of opportunities where conservatives can grow our majority, but there's a lot of areas where we need to play strong defense. Tarrant County redistricted to add a Republican county commission seat, which Representative Tony Tinderholt is now running for. And Representative Tony Tinderholt is undoubtedly one of the strongest leaders of the conservative faction within the Texas House. And now his seat is open. And you have a lot of moderate forces, Texans for Lawsuit Reform and Sands Casinos, who are focused on trying to flip that seat. And conservatives have all coalesced behind Cheryl Bean, who has Tony Tinderholt's endorsement, Nate Schatzline's endorsement, David Lowe's endorsement, David Cook's endorsement, Tim O'Hare, Bill Wayburn, the county judge, the sheriff. Conservatives all come around and said, this is what we need to do so that we make sure that Tony is replaced by somebody who's also going to fight for conservative principles day in and day out. The dominoes are falling. Just imagine if Governor Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, had also decided to not seek re-election. Imagine the dominoes that might fall in 4 years if they do decide to leave. Conservatives this election cycle have a ton of great opportunities to make sure that good conservatives are upgraded to, further positions, and that positions that are opening up as the result of not just the dominoes, but the retirements that are coming, that those retirements are then replaced, those retirees. Sorry, Tony Tinderholt, that I'm calling you a retiree. You are going to be a county commissioner technically, but you're retiring from this one. That these retirees are actually replaced by individuals really committed to conservative principles. Because here's the thing. If you are part of the corrupt Austin swamp, you do not like the direction that Texas is going. It has become much harder for you to get what you want out of the legislative process. And so it is the Empire Strikes Back episode where they are bringing all their forces together to try to just do an all-out assault to see if they can't move Texas back in the middle. And that's the battle we're in. And there's been private conversations about it off and on, but I just think it's time to just openly say it. That's what we're in. The Empire is trying to strike back. They have lost a lot of ground. They would like to gain some of it back. And they're going to go to war with the grassroots this cycle. So that's what we're up against. That's what we're fighting. That's why we organize. That's why we coordinate. That's why we coalesce. Conservatives in Texas are coming together because they know the stakes. And they know that the fact that the dominoes are falling means there's a lot of opportunity to either gain or lose ground. May God bless you, and may God bless the great state of Texas.